Hello and welcome to today's Free Training Friday. My name is Kaylee White. I am a marketing coordinator here at Amicus Next. And today we have Dave Lamb. He's a senior software trainer here at Amicus Next. And he'll be going over how to manage communications within your Amicus attorney. This will be about a 30-minute webinar with 10 minutes left at the end for question and answer. So please feel free to submit any questions that you have into the question portion of the GoToWebinar control pane. And this session is being recorded, so don't worry about taking notes or anything like that. We will be sending you the recording later today. And that's about it. So without further ado, I'll let Dave take it over. Hey, Dave.
Thanks very much for the intro, and welcome to Free Training Fridays. I just want to say that the screen you're looking at now, I'm not sure if that's a desktop or if that's all the things from my desktop that fell on the floor. So one day I'll figure out what that graphic is all about. Anyway, we are going to be talking about managing the flow of communications in Amicus Attorney. And in this session, we're going to focus on managing outstanding communications because that's really important. Now, the leading I'm going to bring up another slide here, and this is by a famous lawyer that you may recognize. The leading rule for the lawyer, as for the man of every other calling, is diligence. Leave nothing for tomorrow which can be done today. Never let your correspondence fall behind. Whatever piece of business you have in hand before stopping, do all the labor pertaining to it, which can then be done. And I'm sure you've heard of this lawyer, Abraham Lincoln. And one area that legal professionals really get into trouble with is communication. And Abraham Lincoln's advice is still valid today. Never let your correspondence fall behind. Now, in his day, he didn't have to deal with phone calls and phone messages and emails like we do today. But poor communication with clients can lead to all kinds of issues. And legal professionals deal with a high volume of communications, and it always seems like the phone is ringing and the inbox is full. So Amicus Attorney helps you manage your communications to avoid some of the most common pitfalls. Now, let's get our language straight first. In Amicus Attorney language, communications are phone calls, phone messages, and emails. And of course, communication management is an integral part of Amicus Attorney. Now let's go into, first of all, a contact card. So we're going to go into the People module. We're going to open Janet Bailey's contact card. And here on the contact card, just let me expand it. You can see that one of the areas we have is communications. And under here, this is a nicely broken down list. And by the way, our developers taught me that a list like this is called granular, and that's a lovely word to use, this granular list. And the reason that it is broken down, of course, is because communications are so important. So I can see all of my phone calls and phone messages with our client, Janet Bailey. I can see all of my emails, that's incoming or outgoing emails. All of my communications, again, phone calls, phone messages, and emails. I can also see all calls and messages, all emails, all communications. So no matter which firm member has sent or received an email, made or received a phone call, I will see them all here. So a centralized location for all of the communications that have to do with Janet Bailey, with any of our contacts. Let's go into the Files module now. And in Files, again, let's open Janet's file. Just like we had in the People module, we have the same centralized communications records here under Communications. And again, I can see all of my calls and messages to any of the people on this file, not just Janet, but Mr. Brackman and Mr. Kipling. Anyone who has a role on this file, we have a record of their communications. All of my emails, again, incoming or outgoing. All of my communications, and again, in Amicus Attorney language, communications are phone calls, phone messages, and emails. and all calls and messages, all emails, all communications with anyone on this file. So in both the contact card and on the file, a central location to see all of the communications. And those communications contain communications that you've dealt with and outstanding communications. How can you tell the difference? Well, let's take a look at all communications on Janet's file. You see that each one of these communication records, and they each have a nice little icon. The little phone call means that this was a phone call, either incoming or outgoing. A phone message, an email with the nice little sign here. If it has a checkbox, it means it's been dealt with. No checkbox means that it's outstanding. So we can see communications on the contact card. We can see communications on the file. But of course, you can manage your communications there, but one of the best places to manage all of your outstanding communications is in the communications module. So let's go there in communications. Now, by default, when we open the communications module, we open to the outstanding tab. And here we can see all of our outstanding phone calls, our outstanding phone messages, and our outstanding emails. And here on the left, you'll see that we have some filters to see exactly what you want. So we're going to take a look at outstanding calls. We're going to uncheck messages, uncheck emails, and these are my outstanding phone calls. But wait just a moment. If you are familiar with Amicus Attorney, you might ask, hey, when I do a phone call, either receive a phone call or make a phone call, isn't it already dealt with? Yes, but you can actually change the status of a phone call to outstanding. So you might do this if you require more action to be taken, or you don't want to mark the call dealt with until you, say, review or change the notes on the call, or you decide if you want to do a follow-up or not. Now from here, of course, I can open the record. Just double-click and open the record, and there is my phone call. So any communication record, double-click to open. And once I open this, of course, I have the option to change the notes. I can type in there. I have the option to do a time entry. I have the option to do a follow-up. I have the option to mark it as dealt with. So this is how you can change the status of a phone call. So let's say, for example, I want to make a brand new phone call to someone. You can do this in many, many places in Amicus. I'm going to go back to my people module and say I'd like to call Janet. I'm going to right-click and I'm going to phone call. Now, Amicus can't dial the phone for you, but it does pretty well everything else. So it's come up with the phone call detail. And I always like to tell people in training that Amicus isn't psychic, but it makes some pretty good assumptions for us. And one is that I'm calling Janet, but if this was a phone call from Janet, I can change that. This is her primary phone number, but if I was calling her and I needed to reach her, say at her cell, I could select cell. It knows that the phone call is from me, and by the way, during this session, I am Heather, so it's from Heather. This is Janet's file. It knows the call was made today, 2:05 p.m. The clock is running, and of course the clock is running because I'd like to be able to make a time entry to bill my client for this time. While we're speaking to Janet on the phone, we do have a call history available to us, and there is my calls with this person. And so these are all of the phone calls that I've made to Janet. Very, very handy. And the reason for this, of course, is that if Janet says to me, hey, you know, nobody called me last week, and say, well, look at that. On December the 1st, on Friday, yes, Janet left a message at 12:16 to call me. And so we can look up all of the communications, not just phone calls, but all communications with this person. That includes, of course, as I said, phone calls, phone messages, and even emails. So if Janet is talking on the phone to us and says, did you get my email this morning? We can open that up and we can take a look at the email, and we can speak to Janet on the phone while we're looking at the email, all from one interface. Now, what I can also do here is, of course, I can make my notes. And sorry, I am subjecting you to my typing. And then we're going to save our phone call. All right, so we've saved our phone call. Again, as we said before, our phone call is going to be available on this contact card. And just a moment. Whoops. I've just got to start my Amicus, sorry for that. This is because of my little demo database. It sometimes does things that I don't like. So once we've made a phone call, received a phone call, you're going to be able to see a record of that on the contact card and on the file, as we saw before. So let's go to contact card. So let's go to Janet's contact card, and I think we have some phone calls there. I'm just going to start up my little tutorial. And by the way, an offside. The tutorial database that I'm using today is available to you all. It is like a, we might call a sandboxed version of Amicus. You'll open it up, and you will be in a little office, an Amicus office of Heather Gavel, and Heather has files and contacts and phone records, and it's a great place to come in and learn Amicus. For example, if you'd like to learn how to delete files or place appointments on other firm members' calendars, it's great to do that without having to do it with your own database. Learning things like how do I delete contacts and delete files is probably not something you want to do on your firm's database. So this is a great place to learn how to do that. All right, we'll go back into people. We're going to go into Janet Bailey and again into communications. And here's a phone call. You notice it is marked dealt with. I can change the status of that phone call. And where did my phone call go? There it is, my phone call detail. I think it got buried somewhere in just a moment. I'm just going to pull up another one. So it just moved to my other screen. There we go. Okay, so I've made the phone call, and at any point then I can change it from dealt with to outstanding. So I might say, I'm not sure what I want to do after this. I'm still not quite finished with the call. I've made it outstanding. And so that's how you can change a phone call into outstanding. So let's go back into our communications. We're going to filter to calls, and here are 2 phone calls that are now outstanding. So how do I deal with outstanding phone calls? You notice the checkbox isn't checked. Anywhere in the system where you see the phone call, you can open it up, and if I'd like to do, say, a follow-up for this, click follow-up, and what a follow-up does is it puts an event on my calendar, by default a to-do, but you could switch it to an appointment, and it fills in as much information as it can for me, and it fills in a fair amount. It gives it a nice title, in this case, Call Frank Sydenham. I like that, I'll leave it. There's the file. It's going to go on my calendar, and the only thing it didn't know is when I said that I'm going to call back, I'm going to set that call back for Monday, and OK, and click OK, and you notice now that that phone call record is no longer in my outstanding list because I dealt with it. Other ways that you can deal with your phone calls, of course, is that you can do a phone message from here. That will mark it as dealt with. Or if you just want to make changes, say, to the description, to the notes that you've put in, mark it as dealt with, click OK, and it's done. So that's a nice, easy way to deal with phone calls. Again, by default, when you create a phone call record, it is marked dealt with, but you can uncheck that box if you need to deal with it later. Okay, there are some alerts. There is an alert for phone calls. that if there's a, I'm sorry, there's no alert for phone calls. The alerts that we get in the communications module are for phone messages. So let's talk about phone messages for a moment. Phone message. These are my phone messages. Again, we're in outstanding. These are all of my outstanding phone messages. Phone messages in Amicus are messages that have been sent to me from someone else. So let's just go through how we can send, receive, and deal with a phone message. So I'm going to create a new phone message. So I take the phone call. It's not for me. It's for someone else. Who is it for? Well, I'm actually going to send it to myself so that we can see it. And who is it from? If it's from one of our contacts, you can pick them from the list, or you can simply type their name in. If there's not a contact, let's say this one is from George M. Smith. And we just take Mr. Smith. What's your phone number? 12207. Okay, and is this associated with a file? And let's say it is. And then we take the notes, you know, George needs a callback. Now, because this is just a little bit of training, I know none of you ever run into this situation when you're dealing with somebody. He needs a callback now, and we're going to mark it as urgent, and please call. Now this is pink because I'm not sure if anybody here that's with us remembers back when we used to have those pink phone message slips. I sure remember those pink phone message slips that you would fill out, then walk to somebody's desk and put it on their desk. Well, that's what this is. Now there's two ways that I can send this. I can click send. This will transfer our electronic phone message over to the firm member specified here. I also have a send and email. Send an email is really cool. For example, the person I'm sending this phone message to isn't in the office, but they do have their phone and they do have access to their email. So I can send and email. Now, because Amicus doesn't know about Mr. Smith, it asks us, would you like to add this person to Amicus? I'm just going to say no. And so what's going to happen are a couple of things. One, back in the office of the person receiving this phone message, they will get this big sticky, you have a new urgent phone message. And so they'll see this here on their screen. And the person sending the phone message will get this. They will get an email pop-up that's already addressed to our firm member with the subject phone message from, and the following message was taken when, by whom, it's urgent, please call, and you could type this in whatever message you want, you know, please deal with this. Okay, and then you can send that off. So the recipient of the phone message gets an email, has all of the information they need to phone our person. And because, again, as I've said before, how important communications are, what we don't want is we don't want people leaving a phone message with us and we get back to them 2 days later and say, gee, sorry I didn't get back to you, I was out of the office. Sometimes that is just not viable to do. So this will really help if it's really urgent and somebody's out of the office. So we would simply send that off. Now, back in the recipient's office, the person receiving the phone message, you'll notice that here's my list of phone messages. If it's in red, it is urgent. And you can see I have several urgent phone messages. How do I deal with these outstanding phone messages? Let's open it. So what can I do? I can follow up. Just like we could generate a task to be on our calendar to remind us to do a phone call, this will remind us to deal with this phone message. I could forward this and make it somebody else's problem, like taking that little paper slip from your desk, putting it on someone else's desk and say, hi, guess what I have for you? Now this is your problem. Or I could say, gee, I better phone Mr. Smith, click the phone call icon, and yes, we're making the phone call. So those are several ways to deal with the phone call, with the phone messages. The other way is, say I already dealt with this. I could say the call was returned, or I could just mark it as dealt with. So if I really didn't have to take any other action, if I'd already returned the call, say I was out in the field, returned the call from my phone, call was returned, or mark as dealt with. And so that's how we can deal with outstanding phone messages. So again, I made a phone message for myself. Generally, you don't create phone messages for yourself. Someone will take a phone message and send it to you. So we've seen how we can deal with outstanding phone calls and outstanding messages. Let's go to our next communication type, which is emails. Now, your Amicus can link to your Outlook or your Exchange inbox. And when Amicus pulls them in, they appear here under Outstanding. Emails that you send from Amicus are automatically flagged as dealt with, of course. So here in the Communications module, you can see all of your outstanding emails. There is a preview pane at the bottom. I'm just going to drag it up so that when we click on an email, just like Outlook, you can actually see the contents of that email. So just like phone calls, just like messages, there are several ways to deal with an email. If it's the kind of message that you just need to read and no response is required, then again, our little box here, you can simply click that box, marks it dealt with, and it's gone from your outstanding list. Now, if you need to take action, what can you do? Well, you can right-click and reply. You can forward, make this somebody else's problem. You can open the email and take a look at the details, and from here, you can do just like you can do in Outlook. You can reply, and you can forward. These, of course, will mark the email as dealt with. You can also do, yes, indeed, you can do a follow-up, and again, it makes an event in your calendar so you can deal with this later. So if this is not the kind of email that you need to deal with immediately, you can do a follow-up. And again, this is so that you don't forget. When we say to people, you know, I'm taking a look at your email, I'll get back to you tomorrow, put a follow-up on the calendar so you don't forget. And of course, we can do our time entry here too. And so whatever we wish to do, I'm going to mark it simply as dealt with, click OK, and that is now again gone from the outstanding list. So we've seen how you can manage your outstanding phone calls, phone messages, and email. And the centralized place to do that is here in the Communications module. Remember also that you can take the same kind of action on any of these entries, phone calls, phone messages, or emails from the People module and from the Files module. And if we go back to our Office, here onto our home screen, we also have a nice little reminder here that I have phone messages to return. That's a nice reminder when we open this at the beginning of the day. Click here, and it takes us directly to the Communications module filtered for messages. So that's pretty well what I wanted to cover today, specifically taking a look at managing those outstanding communications, because ultimately what we'd like to do is we don't want to leave them outstanding for long. We want to take some kind of action. And to do that, as I said, the best place to go is under Communications and Outstanding, where they are all presented to us in a centralized location. Then you can take your time and decide how to deal with them. Deal with them right away, put a nice reminder on your to-do list, or say, yeah, I've dealt with that. So right now, what we'd like to do is we're going to run a couple of short little polls for you to fill out, which we would appreciate you doing. And then I'll be back, and we are going to have question period where you can ask me some questions. So here we go. There's our quick poll. And while we're doing that, I'd like to just do a little plug for Amicus Attorney Training. We do offer customized training for your firms, and you can book that on our website, www.abacusnext.com, and we will cover anything you want to do, whether it's a full 2 hours of new user training, or if you'd like to do some of the specialized features in Amicus, like learning how to save time by automating your document production with document assembly, or learning how to, again, save time by automating the processes that you use with linked events and precedents, or customizing the program, or learning how the administrator functions work. This is one-on-one with a trainer where you get to ask questions. It's all customized for you. So we highly recommend training for your firm. It's probably one of the best investments that you can make. Okay, so we've had our little poll. Have we got any more polls?
Yes, thank you guys so much for answering that first poll. It really helps us with the scheduling of what the topics are for these weekly webinars. The next question has to do with Abacus Private Cloud. You may or may not have heard of it before, but we're wondering if you'd like to know more about it. Basically, Abacus Next offers a private cloud solution that enables you to work anywhere on any device, and you can open any application that you need to run your business. It's also a highly secure solution for keeping all of your data and your client data safe. We also help you to manage all of the technical aspects to help your workspace run and keep it running. So if you'd like to learn more about the Amicus Private Cloud, what it is, what it can do for you, just let us know, and we will contact you. So that's it for the polls. We don't want to, death by poll questions. Now we'd love to take any questions that you have for us about Amicus.
Okay, please put your question into the question box provided. I'll take a look at them, and I will do my best to answer your questions in the time remaining for us. I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
And like Dave said, you can always reach out to training. You can reach us by support@abacusnext.com. You can always set up more training, and there are other webinars in the past that you can watch that we recorded, like today. If you just go to the Abacus Next blog, you can see those there. And on the webinars page of the Abacus Next website, you can also see the previous webinars and future ones that you can sign up for. So don't hesitate to sign up for the rest of this month's webinars. We really appreciate you attending.
Okay, and again, I'm going to just wait a few moments for any questions that you have. I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I see one question about the Amicus mobile app. Can you give a little overview about that?
Okay, there is an app coming out, a mobile app. It's going to be coming up very, very soon, because we're going to be launching our newest release very, very soon. They're working very hard over here for that. The app will be for iOS and also for, of course, Android, where you'll be able to log into an app on your device and do a lot of the functions in Amicus, time entries and look up other entries. We also, of course, have, for people who want mobile access to Amicus, we have Amicus Anywhere. And Amicus Anywhere is a really cool hybrid of, say, a web-based application and a server-based application. And what Amicus Anywhere does is it uses a little, what we call a relayer up in the cloud, that you open Amicus Anywhere on a web browser. You log in with credentials, and you establish an encrypted connection to our little relayer, and you can see your files and contacts, your calendar, make time entries, do a lot of the things you can do on your desktop in that web browser called Amicus Anywhere. And again, it's all encrypted, and there's never any information on the device. And this would be the same with the mobile app, is it reaches out to your information on your server, whether that be in private cloud or on your own server. It relays it up to the relayer down to your device where you have great mobile access to it. And then when you log out, there's no information left on that device at all. So it's a great and secure way to access your data when you're on the road. So right now we have Amicus Anywhere, but in our newest release that's coming out very, very, very soon, you're going to have the actual app for it to work, and it's going to be great.
Alrighty, well, I think that's about all the time that we have for today. Thank you everybody so much for being here. If you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to send them to webinars@abacusnext.com, and we will respond to you shortly. So thank you everybody. Thanks so much, Dave. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, indeed. Hopefully that was useful to you. And thanks very much, and have a great weekend.